people misunderstand. They talk about the people on different sides and those who are coming into the country. They talk about the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and they say, the Democratic Party was the one that was against the civil rights movement.
Right.
So could you briefly clarify what it was, what it is not, and what is...
Going back further than that.
Yeah.
Going back to Abraham Lincoln, when the slaves were freed, it was the Republican Party. The GOP, which was more for it, because the South were mostly Democrats. People from the South, that goes all the way up to like the 60s. Most of the Southern people were Democrats. So most black people were Republicans then, because Republicans were anti-slavery and they had great business. Black people could do business and stuff. Well, during the 60s, 50s, and 60s, they started changing. And once they started integrating schools, the Republican Party shifted. And so black people moved over to Democrats. And then the Southern even last 10 to 50 years, had a few of those where Democrats in the South became Republicans. They switched parties, so the thing changed over. So now the Democratic Party became the party of progressive party of freedom of rights and different things, and the Republican Party went to the other side.
Reverse exactly what it was and what to do. So you've seen people like Storm Thorman and Goldwater who would do anything they could to not do that at the time. That's when they had switched over.
In fact, it was so bad for a long period of time. The Democrats were called Dixiecrats, like Dixie in the South. They were called Dixiecrats. That's how strong they were aligned with segregation and stuff.
That was the other Democratic Party.
Yeah, that's before like the 60s and 70s.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. I hope people get it. So what gives you hope right now? When you think about the past and going forward, what gives you hope for the future?
I'm hoping that people will get involved, that they don't stay back and thinking. That get involved is taking these people out of office who are doing such thing and trying to erase what has been already accomplished. Because if there is not a really an eye on it, there will come a time like people deny like the Holocaust. And some people were thinking that, slavery was an important thing and, let's say, a benefit to the blacks who were brought over here. And the narrative, all that was changed. So to get that involved, people have to get involved in the way of participating and making sure they get out to vote. Make sure they support the people who are supporting the principles that are good for America and not just for certain rich businessmen or whatever that are going that routine. We have to stay vigilant of that because we don't, if we don't, somebody else will write what they thought was right there, and it's going to be an improper thing that they put it down, and then younger people will not see it. And people become less, let's say, self-centered. They be more out there at a younger age, giving of themselves and things like we did. We didn't think we had anything else but ourselves to give. And these days they're a lot more, let's say, comfortable in doing things. But you have to get to the point where they think they can do something that bigger than what they are in their individual ambitions, instead of just going to school and having a great job with a great 401k and all that and forget everybody else. That's what I'm thinking.
So I guess it is necessary for history. History is relevant today.
Yes,
because we need to know what went on and where we're at today and why we're here.
Yeah, I think people need to seek the truth. And the actual historical accuracy. And think about it too. It's not about making white people feel guilty or feel bad, because there were a lot of white people involved in the movement to help move it forward. Both walking the streets, being killed in the legislature, in courts that made the thing move forward. But it's about being historically correct and trying to move the whole country forward, accepting what it is and say, this is what we did, it was wrong. We don't want to do this anymore, we want to go this way.
Yeah, exactly. Accepting that what we did was what was done at that time, and the people who are currently here now did not do it, but they benefited from some of the things that other people did. Yeah, I think that's generational.
That's big. That's why a lot of people don't understand how they benefited. An example would be the GI Bill that was doing. When the GI Bill was done after World War II, it wasn't until like maybe the 90s or something before, to a great extent, black people got to use GI Bill because we could get loans. Whereas a white person came out, got a house, that's generational wealth. Also, until almost 2000, the FHA programs, in terms of home loan, HUD, black people were redlining. So the same person could go in, and you could not get a loan, especially if you live in a black neighborhood or adjacent to a black neighborhood. Again, generational wealth. You could buy a house, you could do certain things, you could move forward. Urban renewal. every city in the United States, when the urban renewal came in the 70s, one of the first thing they did was go to the black community, find out where the commercial hub was, and destroyed it. They came in, they would say it was a plight, tear it down. You go any freeway interchange, and you don't say you driving, but look at where you're going to be when you drive the interchange. You go through the hub, look and see what community you're in. And most likely that hub was built directly on top of what used to be a commercial area for black businesses. And from the 60s up through the 90s, that happened across this country. And people ask about the setback where you don't have anything. And then other things would be like Tulsa, Rosewood, they were thriving cities, middle class black cities in the 30s and the 50s were burned to the ground by white mobs.
Yeah. But what people have to realize is that they should embrace diversity and what it does to this country, what we're being able to do. Especially in wars or whatever, we've done that way. We've gotten together even during the Revolutionary War, before we even became a nation. When we got together and do things like that, we could do great things and make us look great and live up to those words that were in the Constitution.
Every war in this country, black people fought in it. Every one of them. In fact, for a while, the Revolutionary War, they fought on both sides. Because for the first when the British came in, the British said, "We'll free you if you fight with us."
Yes.
So hey, okay.
Yeah, you took the way to go.
Oh, that reminds me of something else too. It's 250th anniversary coming up, and people put that in context, right? Okay, it's 250 years big anniversary. 89 of those 250 years, our ancestors were slaves in this country. That's what we think about. But even worse than that, since the first slaves were brought here in 1619. And now we're talking about 2026. It wasn't until 1865. So we spent as a group, about 246 years as slaves in this country, and about 161 years as so-called free people in this country. So you put that in perspective and talk about celebrating the history of this country, the great freedom and thrive all this country have. There's another story to that. When you look at how the thing really fits together. So some people may look at that and say, wait a minute, what are we celebrating here? So the other thing is like the Star Spangled Banner. It's another thing. How that thing is about slavery. But people understand the first part they talk about, so you read the whole thing. That thing about going through the realm, that's about chasing slaves. Okay, how come black people are supposed to be enthused about that? Why can't they change that? Why can't you say, okay, we're going to come with a new song, we'll do something, what do we do? Whatever it is. But no, instead it's like, you have to stand and put your hand on your heart, all this stuff. I'm thinking, but I know the whole thing, And when I know the other part of it, you telling me I got to pretend it doesn't exist, and if I don't, you got a problem with me. See, no.
But you got to look at also that they're all through the ages, people have served in the military to help fight for the country, whatever it was, even knowing that they were like second-class citizens or even third class, as you want to say that. They had to hope that one day that thing might change, that people might see that we embrace the things that were spoken about in the Constitution and all that, which they never had opportunity that way, but they still participated, still died, and still have to, like in World War II, fight to get killed for a country that didn't see you as well as they should have. But we're seeing a lot of things. Like when I went out to the Marine Corps, I saw a lot of people who were too set in their ways to change or do things to them. And there are quite a few other people who open their eyes. They could see, these people are different. Like in 1969, I was rooming with a little guy from Montana, and then another guy, a Hispanic guy from El Paso, Texas, and a black guy from Alabama. And one room together, and that was normally unheard of at that time. People getting together and working that close, and then we worked in radar, and then now we're in a room together, molded together as a group. In fact, I'm still friends with those guys from that period of time, but they could see, being associated with other people, that you're working together toward a common goal. I mean, you're equally treated badly. We had sergeants who would say, well, if you were in a combat, you do anything, don't do that. You can't die until I give you permission to die.
Yeah.
You're all green, you're all my Marines. You see what I mean?
Similar to Sargent's experience when I was in boot camp in the Navy. I just got, every time we go eat, he would always sit me, and he would always make sure he sit in front of me and stare at me. And and finally I said, well, it's interesting. This guy's like, go out. He wouldn't say just looking, using my company, we were training boot camp. The finally I figured, okay, I got what's this guy's story? So I asked him. He said, I never seen a black person live before. I never been closer. He's from one of those Dakotas too, somewhere.
Yes.
He said once there was one living in China. I saw him down the street, but I had never seen a black person. We go sit down and eat. He would get his food and sit across from me. He said, my goodness.
Yeah. You got to remember that. But then there are a lot of other people who had difficult times, like my friend Doug, the guy from Montana. He was saying how difficult it was that they had land and a big ranch and all of that routine there, but they lost the ranch because of $700. Couldn't pay the $700 to pay the taxes. They kept a smaller farm, but they couldn't have that. Well, she's having trouble like that, but then with the black people, they didn't get a chance to have the ranch in the first place to do the thing. But that was a kindred thing together that you had gone through difficult times all together, and that you were able to get over and get above it.
I know this is an aside, but sorry, I said it made me think about the 40 acres and the mule thing, and this whole country talk about reparations.
Yes.
One group got, after slavery was ended, there was one group that got reparations. That was the slave owners. The slave owners got compensated for their property. But the property, to this day, hasn't got compensated. So put that in when you talk about this whole thing, or how this stuff fits together. Those people that owned slaves, the United States government gave them money, value for their loss of their property. But the property was 40 acres and a mule, and it didn't happen. But it's interesting about that property, that 40 acres, they call bottomland. And for a few that did get it, the bottomland. Well, bottomland is where it floods. So it's like what happened to Native Americans. To the few that did get some land, you got land, you got swamp, you didn't get land. You got some land that, okay, you go over there by that swamp or whatever, something, whatever, you can have that, so.
In conclusion, what would you like to share? Anything about you'd like to tell your younger self as you wrap this up?
Well, it's just that I'm just seeing a change in American boys, and I thought I had assumed that we were a lot further than we were. And I had started seeing some of this when I worked part-time for the census in 2010 and meeting different people there. And I was shocked that certain people had certain ideas that were like counter-American, and I would think that we should pull together and do this particular thing. I think we have to look at that and see where we want to advance and realize that we're one country. We're supposed to be one of the greatest countries in the world. People fight and die just to get here. They want to come here to experience it, to do things that other people haven't been able to do in their own countries. And we should just hold that up as one of those let's say, the lamp being lit for people, for expression, for study, for jobs and all that sort of thing, and that we can share with people and doing this sort of thing, to show what kind of people we are and what the other people are fighting to get to. And I think that's an important thing to realize, that this is a place that should be the place that people work for, to invite others and help others and do it as America, as a group, that we're Americans first. We may be diverse in our different things that we do in our different neighborhoods or whatever, but together, when it comes to do something like that, we're all Americans. We're here. Yeah,
I would say try to do things to help the country live up to its creed and what it says is, what it's about. To the extent you do that, you're happy. And I think people who are critical, people want to say you're radical and stuff, but the idea is to make America be what it's said is idea to get to where it is. And so search out that, stay the path, and try to help out. The other thing is, when you see people doing the same things, this whole thing about say something, do something, really is important. Because when people say or do things, they think if you don't say you disagree, they think you agree with them. By not saying anything. That's why a lot of people who not been necessarily to be racist, but if someone says or does something racist, you don't say anything, that person assumes that you agree with them, or at least at a minimum you're okay with it. So the idea is that you got to let people know where you stand when it comes to stuff like that. So I would say do the stuff that make this country big, following what Sargent said, help the country become what it can be, what it should be, what it says it wants to be. And you're not wrong by trying to achieve that. You're actually progressing the goal, moving towards that goal.
Yes, absolutely. And my 2 cents, I think, as we go along, America and the world is becoming more diverse. There is nothing that anyone can do to stop that.
That's right. That's right.
And diversity is what makes us better as a people. It's a global economy. It's just going to be diversity. we're just going more
It's
than
don't
that.
stop it.
So I think it's better to embrace ourselves as a people.
All this anti-immigration may slow it down, but it's not going to stop it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and we really appreciate we're standing on your contribution. We're standing on what the civil rights has done for people of color and everybody else out there. And we're truly grateful. We're so honored to have you guys. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you for
Invite
giving
us.
us the opportunity.
Hot Talk in the City on behalf of Hot Talk and Mountain Health Matters. We're so grateful.
Thank you.
I hope the listeners have had a great experience. Contribute by commenting, and we'll probably pass on what you've shared with our guests here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bruce. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sargent. Thank you.